Ooh, we got some thieves up in here. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Wolf Pack. Today we are talking all about Thieves Market. Let me know what y'all think about that commercial, that intro commercial that we did for the Kickstarter trailer. Down in the comments below, I would love to hear your thoughts. We went a little bit different for this one. It was very unique because the game itself, I feel like leads or lends itself into that kind of territory where it's just different from a lifestyle commercial. But full disclaimer before we start today, that intro commercial was commissioned by Pickpocket Games. However, they have no idea I'm making this part of the video, which is the review video. I just love the game so much that I really want to share my thoughts about it. So full disclaimer that as always, this review is not sponsored, but yeah, I just wanted to share that intro commercial with you all. They have no idea that I'm even making this review video as of the time of this recording. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in this game, you are playing the role of if you said warrior, that was a good guess. Your goal as a thief is to steal the most amount of loot and then score the most amount of points for that by the end of the game. So here's how the game works. There are two phases. The first one is the loot phase, and the reason why I wanted to make today's video immediately. So in the loot phase, you're gonna be rolling dice according to the number of players. We'll set up for a 4-player game today, which means we're rolling 13 dice. And please note that what I'm showing you is a prototype version. So we're gonna roll those dice, and on your turn, you have two choices. The first one is that you can split loot. What that means is you can take as many items as you want from this pool of dice and bring it towards you. But here's a twist and why the game immediately gets to the fun. You can pick as many dice as you want. You can take 1 die, you can take 2 dice, you can take all of the dice. That right there is splitting loot. The other thing you can do is steal loot. And also this first player marker is included with that pool of dice as well. And this is a big deal because whoever goes first will get to buy first in the next round. Now from there, other people can steal your loot. And when they steal, they take everything from you. And when they do, they can then put any number of those dice back into the middle. But whatever is put back into the middle is re-rolled. So say if someone stole my entire pile from me, they can then take 2 dice and then re-roll that. And this becomes a new choice for the third player from there. They can either steal loot from the second player that took all this or take the dice from the middle. And everyone keeps going back and forth until everyone has at least 1 item in front of them. That right there is the loot phase. But then the questions are, what do you do with all the dice that you've been taking? And how do I know which dice I should take from other people? Well, there actually is going to be a market of cards right up top, and it's going to be a row of 5 cards. These cards are gonna tell you exactly what you can buy. For instance, if we look at this card right here, the top left is gonna tell you exactly what it costs. In this case, it's going to cost 1 blue gem. And then on the bottom, it's gonna tell you what you can do with this card. So then 1x means you can use this card 1 time during your turn. And then the purple icon right here on the bottom is a victory point icon, which means you can exchange a victory point in exchange for a green gem or a red gem. Now for the dice, these are the 4 resources that you have access to. And then there's also a gold resource. This one right here is going to count as a wild, but you can only hold 2 gold in your pool at 1 time. And then you also will get these gold coins in exchange for those dice, which we'll talk about in a second. Ultimately, the whole point of this game, which is to score the most of these victory points. So these owls right here represent victory points that you can take after the next phase. So those are the market cards. And then the next round, you have heist cards that come in, which become stronger. They also will introduce a new effect, which are these infinity symbol ones. That means that you can then use this card as many times as you want. And then the relic cards will come in next at the 3rd round, and they also introduce a brand new effect, which is a red lightning symbol, which means this happens immediately. The fun little Easter egg here is that these cards also have movie references, like in this case, the Precious Ring. You all know which one that's from. If you didn't say Lord of the Rings, I am severely disappointed in that. Here, let me give you a second to name this one. Unlimited power. If you lived under a rock and haven't seen any of the Avengers movies. So in summary, we start off first with the loot phase. This is where we roll dice and then we go around the table and either split loot, which means we take as many dice as we want from the middle, including the first player marker. We take those and put it to our own pile, or we steal all the dice from another player and then roll one of those dice into the middle. And then once everyone has at least 1 item from that pool of dice, we then go into the market phase, which answers the question, what do you do with these dice? You're gonna take these dice and start buying items from this row of cards. We start off first with only the market cards, and then you can buy items according to the top left requirement listed on these cards. During the next round, we now have access to the market and heist cards, and whichever cards are bought will then get replaced for the next round. And then lastly, we then have relic cards, which will have a display of 3 that pop up. And ultimately, you keep going till someone purchases 3 relic cards. From there, whoever has the most points, aka the most of these purple icons, will win, because if you have left over of these icons and the gold icons of the dice after you've done purchasing the items that you want from the middle, you will then exchange these for points here. So if I had 1 purple owl, I will take 1 point. And then if I had 1 of these gold icons, I will then take 1 coin. And these coins can be used to purchase any color on the board. Last thing I want to mention is that there are character cards here, but again, please know that this is a prototype, so their abilities may or may not change by the end. I don't know if they're going to have async abilities or not, but just so you can see the artwork and everything, here we have Dave the Flying Squirrel, Shelby the Rhino, Todd the Poison Dart Frog, Sam the Crow, and lastly Charlie the Groundhog. 5 different characters for a 3 to 5 player game. Now here's what I've enjoyed the most about Thieves Market so far, playing it 3 times now. I played it twice at 4 player and once at 3 player, and do like it more with the more players you have. So overall, what I really love about it is the stealing mechanic, because that part is so much fun. I feel like once you give people the flexibility to choose how much they want to steal and whether or not they want to take everything from another player, it really invites a fun point of conversation around the table. Like once you get people put into this spot where like they can choose how selfish to be, it really brings out a completely different perspective that I think really invites a lot of table talk. Obviously, if you don't like take that mechanisms, this is probably not the game for you, because it is completely take that. Like most of this part of this game is pretty mean in that sense. Like you're gonna be taking things from other people and they have to be okay with that. Now, immediately, that was my first question, which was, if you keep taking things from other people, how does the game mitigate like someone being targeted all the time? And I think it does that effectively in 2 ways. The first way is that once you take loot from someone, you don't get to keep all that loot. You have to roll at least 1 back. So that immediately kind of offsets the situation a bit, because then you're gonna start building up this pool in the center, and having that offsets the whole, target 1 person in a game. And trust me, I'm always targeted in every game. So if I'm okay with that, it will be fine. The second way I think this game was really clever in mitigating like having someone being targeted all the time is that these cards, a lot of them in the beginning especially, aren't really all that expensive. So even if you end up with just 1 green gem, for instance, here in Transmutate, well, all it costs is going to be 1 green gem in order for you to gain access to this card. And now all your green gems can be converted into red gems, even though you only have them for 1-time use. Still, at least now you have the flexibility to move back and forth between 2 different colors. Now, another thing that I loved about Thieves Market is that you're not just stealing to steal. You're not just taking things as a gimmick, but more so what's really important is that all those items that you're taking are gonna be used to buy these cards that progresses in a really cool way from round to round. I love that these abilities in the beginning start off very basic, like you just can convert a color to another color, but then you get new abilities as you move into the heist deck. You start getting some interesting choices like converting gold into 2 victory points, converting like different colors into victory points too. And the more that the game goes on, the bigger and the better your engine becomes. That right there is super satisfying. Now, one thing I didn't like about this game though is actually how the end game works. So as soon as someone gains 3 of these relic cards, that right there is going to trigger the end game. And for me, when you give 1 person that much power to delay a game, I think it takes away from the pacing a ton, because then everyone around the table can just delay their game and they don't have to buy any of these relic cards. And if people play that way, it slows down the game a ton. Versus like me, I'd rather have like a 10-point requirement. As soon as someone gets 10 points, then you're keeping up the pacing high the entire time. Everyone is gunning to gain those 10 points immediately. And I love that it matches with the whole, high stakes situation here. Like we're stealing loot, we're trying to get caught, we're trying to get as much loot as possible and then get out. I think that matches the theme a lot more, and it matches the plot, and it matches like the pacing and what you're doing in the game, versus having this kind of arbitrary 3-card requirement. Whenever you get it, that's when the game is over. So that's like my one kind of gripe about this game, is just how you can trigger endgame. I didn't really have anyone delay the situation that much, but still I think it could be a lot faster and a lot more effective if you kind of have a hard cutoff, like, hey, 10 points, game's over. So once that situation is in place, then I think everyone's going to play a lot more with a high pressure environment. I think that's a lot more fun for Thieves Market. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention that I didn't realize until my third game, actually, and I thought was very clever and really cool to kind of implement in the game, which was the stealing part of the game kind of fades off the more you progress in the game. And let me explain. So remember how you start off with these market cards and the heist cards and the relic cards, right? After each round, you introduce a new row. Well, what's cool is that as you start introducing like this final row with the relic cards, that stealing mechanic, yes, it's important, but then by then, everyone is gonna start having a bigger and bigger engine. So they have more and more ways to convert their items. So like once they have a bunch of cards or items like this, the stakes for having those resources aren't as high as they once were in the beginning. So I kind of love how this stealing mechanic fades out a little bit and then start fading into kind of the quote real strategy of the game, where you start using what you have and adapting to what you have in order to make your engine as effective as possible. So to me, that keeps the game fresh because it's not just, you're not bored doing the same thing over and over. And I feel like once you steal enough, it becomes a little bit redundant. But I love that the game avoids that in that it kind of fades out that mechanic and then fades in the full-on engine building strategy as the game goes on. So to me, I think that was such a big highlight in Thief's Market. That's also the reason why I wanted to make this review video to share my thoughts about this, because I think it's such a cool, clever game and such a tiny box. So with that said, I will be backing Thief's Market for sure. Let me know all your thoughts about this game. Like, is this something that you're interested in, something that you'll be backing? I'm also gonna leave a link in the description if you wanna check out the campaign and see what they have to offer. This is again, a prototype. So with that said, if you made it here to the very, very end, go ahead and comment, what would be a fun one today? If you made it to the very, very end, go ahead and comment loot, because we're thieves here and that's what we want by the end of the day, okay? We want loot. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. I swear, it would not be a normal day if I didn't drop some kind of dice on the floor over here. All right.